Beryl is the greatest swordsman alive, though he has no idea. Now in his 40s, he lives quietly, running the same small dojo his family has maintained for generations. Life is simple, uneventful, and exactly as it's always been. One afternoon, while Beryl is outside training, his father sighs and says he wishes there were grandchildren running around the yard. It's been years since Beryl took over the dojo, but when it comes to romance, nothing has changed. He's still as single as ever. Beryl explains he's been too focused on teaching to think about family, but his father refuses to drop the subject. He even half jokes that Beryl should take on a female student as a future wife, an idea Beryl immediately shoots down as completely inappropriate. Beryl once dreamed of earning fame as a swordmaster, but those days are long gone. He's content with teaching, proud that many of his students went on to achieve great things. To him, that's enough. That evening, the family eats together, and his father brings up the topic again: marriage, children, grandchildren. Even his mother gently reminds Beryl that she still expects a grandchild someday. Beryl nearly chokes on his food at the thought. He doesn't even have a girlfriend, let alone a family. It's not like a beautiful woman will just show up at the door. Except one does. When Beryl answers the knock, he's stunned to see a striking woman standing before him. She greets him respectfully as Master, and he realizes it's Alucia Citrus, one of his former students. She was sharp, disciplined, and talented even back then, but now she's the commander of the Royal Knight Order. Over tea, Alucia explains her visit. As commander, she oversees new recruits and decided to recommend Beryl as a special instructor. Her proposal was approved as an official imperial order, and she came personally to deliver the news. Beryl's instinct is to refuse, but before he can, his father warns him that turning down an imperial command could cost him more than just his pride. It could cost him his life. Alucia reassures him that it won't come to execution, but the consequences would still be serious. Better to accept. A carriage is already waiting to take him to the capital. Beryl is reluctant, but with his father grinning and loudly suggesting he find a wife in the city, Alucia wouldn't be a bad choice either. He gives in, embarrassed as Alucia blushes at the comment. On the carriage ride, Beryl notices she still carries the graduation sword he gave her years ago. To him, it's nothing special, a simple mark of completion. But she treasures it, insisting it's perfect for her. Beryl dismisses it as lingering student loyalty, but Alucia insists his blade means more than he realizes. She teases him, calling him the Country Bumpkin Swordmaster, finally making his debut in the capital. Beryl denies both titles, but she tells him he's already famous in swordsmanship circles. Dozens of his students have become great warriors and adventurers. To many, he's a legend, whether he believes it or not. When they arrive at the royal capital, Alucia drops him off at an inn and promises to return in the morning. True to her word, she escorts him to the castle, introducing him as their new special instructor. She boldly announces that even she wouldn't stand a chance against him. The knights exchange skeptical looks, especially Vice Commander Henditz, who clearly doubts Beryl's worth. Later, Alucia congratulates him, explaining his duties will only require him a few times a month so he can still manage the dojo. Suddenly, a girl rushes up, Karuni, one of Beryl's old students. She's thrilled to see him again, having achieved her dream of joining the Knight Order. Alucia, too, is glad to see another of his students reunited with their teacher. That evening, Beryl returns home, only to find another familiar face. Randrid, a former student who went on to become a platinum-ranked adventurer. Randrid has returned with his wife and newborn child, ready to retire from dangerous adventuring. Before Beryl can react, his father announces that Randrid will take over the dojo, freeing Beryl from his responsibilities. In short, he's been kicked out of his own home. The next day, Beryl explains the situation to Alucia, who offers to help him find lodging. Half joking, she suggests he stay with her, but Beryl declines, saying it wouldn't be proper. Disappointed but smiling, she instead invites him to lunch. Before they reach the restaurant, a sharp-tongued woman calls out, berating Alucia for being seen with a man. She pulls down Beryl's mask, and the moment she sees his face, her anger vanishes. She calls him Master. Beryl doesn't recognize her at first, but she introduces herself as Serena, a girl he saved and trained decades ago, now a black-rank adventurer. Learning of his new role, Serena insists on helping him find a proper inn, leading to a heated argument with Alucia. Despite the bickering, they manage to secure him a suitable place to stay. Exhausted by their rivalry, Beryl pleads with them to stop fighting, at least in front of him. The next day, during training, Henditz steps forward and formally challenges Beryl to a duel. To him, Beryl's appointment reeks of favoritism, and he refuses to accept him without proof. Alucia approves the challenge, leaving Beryl no choice. The duel begins. Henditz is fast, powerful, and skilled, but Beryl deflects his blows with calm precision. With one perfectly timed move, he slips past Henditz's guard, his blade poised at his throat. That alone should end it. But Henditz comes again, unleashing his signature technique, the roaring blade, a high-speed spinning attack meant to be unstoppable. In an instant, Beryl vanishes and reappears behind him, his sword resting at Henditz's neck. The fight is over. Henditz, stunned, bows his head in respect, admitting defeat and apologizing for doubting him. That evening, he even hosts a welcome party in Beryl's honor. When asked how he countered such a deadly technique, Beryl humbly explains that he simply moved with the rotation, using Henditz's momentum against him. Simple in words, impossible in practice, requiring instinct, timing, and mastery beyond measure. The knights are awed, eager to learn from him. And so, the reluctant country swordsman begins his unexpected new life in the capital. It's been about a week since Beryl started as an instructor. While two knights spar on the training grounds, he strolls over and points out their biggest flaw: spacing. He explains that if you focus too much on the blade, you'll miss when your opponent closes the gap. And in a real duel, even half a step decides life or death. To him, it's just a basic pointer. To the knights, it's divine revelation. Ever since his duel with Henditz, every word he says lands like scripture, and honestly, Beryl can't complain. Trainings never run smoother. After the session, Henditz offers him a towel, and soon Karuni bounces over asking if he has plans. He doesn't, so she eagerly drags him on a city tour. Beryl realizes he hasn't seen much of Baltrain yet, so he agrees, and Karuni darts off to change into something casual. Meanwhile, Alucia is stuck in meetings with royal officials, reporting on the Knight Order and vouching for Beryl. They warned her long ago, if you want to keep training your sword, don't become captain. Bureaucracy will bury you. But she didn't take the position for herself. She became captain for one reason, to bring Beryl here. Her mind drifts back to childhood, her first day at his dojo. While other kids got sword drills, Beryl had her swinging endlessly, hopping across stumps for footwork or building strength with simple exercises. His methods were odd, but they worked. Sparring him was hopeless. She couldn't find a single opening. For years, she thought every instructor was like that, until the day she faced an outsider dojo. Her opponent was sloppy, impatient, wide open. She crushed him instantly and only then realized how much sharper Beryl's teaching truly was. Later that day, she lost her hairpin at the rival dojo. When she went back alone, that same boy picked it up and instead of returning it, tossed it inside, daring her to fight them all. Alucia could have won, but she knew Beryl wouldn't want her using his lessons to beat people senseless. She braced herself for the blow instead. But before the strike landed, Beryl stepped between them, taking the hit himself. Calmly, he asked if this was really the kind of swordsman they wanted to be. When they attacked again, he effortlessly disarmed them all until the rival master arrived, horrified, and apologized on his student's behalf. On the way back, Alucia apologized for causing trouble, but Beryl reassured her. She did nothing wrong. If anything, he blamed himself for letting her walk into danger unsupervised. Years later, she finally landed a clean strike against him in sparring. Proud, he told her she was ready and handed her a graduation sword. Alucia didn't want to leave. She knew Beryl was beyond extraordinary, even if he didn't see it himself. So she promised she would prove to the world that his teaching stood above all others. That promise drove her to join the Knights, crush the entrance exams, and rise through the ranks until she became captain. All so she could one day bring Beryl to the capital. Back in the present, Alucia checks in with Henditz, who praises Beryl's lesson. When she learns Karuni whisked him away to tour the city, she feels a sting of jealousy. Karuni basically asked him out first. Meanwhile, Karuni shows Beryl the bustling markets and hidden corners of the city. Compared to his quiet village, the capital bursts with energy. He had hoped to see landmarks like the Northern Palace, but Karuni brushes it off. Locals stop finding those places special. As they walk, a girl calls out, greeting Beryl as Master. He racks his brain but can't place her. She gestures to her sword. She's Fel, one of his graduates, now a top officer in the Magic Corps. It's been 5 years since he last saw her, so the change is dramatic. Fel explains she came to pick up magic tools, though she doesn't need them. She can wield powerful sword magic on her own. A scream interrupts them. A thief snatches a purse. Before Beryl can move, Fel channels magic through her blade, binding the thief in glowing chains. Karuni swoops in and restrains him. Watching them work seamlessly together, Beryl can't help but be impressed, especially by Fel, who thanks him for shaping the fundamentals that made her magic combat possible. The next morning, Beryl wakes early for a walk. A small girl calls his name. Assuming she's lost, he kneels to help, but she snaps at him. She's no child. She's Lucy, commander of the Magic Corps. Beryl thinks she's joking until she casually summons a massive fireball. She explains she heard all about him from Fel and wanted to meet. Before he knows it, she's dragged him to a plaza, insisting on a spar. Beryl tries to decline, until Lucy hurls a fire blast straight at him. With no choice, he draws his sword. The strongest swordsman alive, about to duel the capital's youngest prodigy mage. Lucy wasted no time. She hurled a massive fireball straight at Beryl. He dove aside, sprinting across the battlefield as one blazing shot after another rained down like a storm. Yet he slipped through every blast, even deflecting a few with effortless flicks of his blade. Realizing fire alone wouldn't work, Lucy conjured 3 enormous ice spheres and launched them at him. With 3 precise strikes, Beryl split each one cleanly in half. Watching his swordsmanship firsthand only fueled Lucy's excitement. But Beryl wasn't interested in dragging this out. He dashed in, intending to end things quickly with a harmless strike from his hilt. Just before he reached her, Lucy cloaked herself in flames, forcing him back. For the first time, she admitted to herself if he closed the gap, she'd lose. The duel escalated. Fireballs now came from every angle, even behind him, driving Beryl into evasive dashes with no clear plan. Lucy laughed at his directionless running. This was his first fight against a mage, and it showed. Still, he endured every spell without a scratch. When her barrage finally eased, a shadow fell overhead. Lucy dropped a giant ice boulder straight toward him. At the last instant, Beryl parried it back with a powerful swing. She shattered it with fire, but the clash filled the arena with thick mist. Beryl saw his chance. He burst through the haze, blade aimed for a decisive strike, only for Lucy to unleash lightning at point-blank range, blasting him back. Neither had landed a clean hit. Both were frustrated, caught in a deadlock. Lucy decided to end it. She paused, gathering her power. Beryl spotted the opening and prepared to finish it, until he froze. Before her, a swirling black hole began to form. His instincts screamed danger. He held his ground, tense, waiting. But Lucy let out a sigh and dismissed it. She admitted she'd gone too far. No ordinary man could stand before that spell without breaking, yet Beryl hadn't flinched once. For the first time, she understood why Fel admired him so much. She apologized sincerely and ended the duel. Beryl exhaled in relief. It had been the most nerve-wracking fight of his life. Curious, he asked what that final spell would have done. Lucy casually replied, "Tear your body apart." Later, she invited him to the Magic Institute to make amends. That same day, while Beryl was teaching, Fel appeared with healing potions from the Institute, insisting he accept one as Lucy's apology. He hesitated. Potions were priceless, but she reassured him it was covered. They talked, and Beryl confessed he'd half believed Lucy really was a child. Fel laughed and revealed Lucy only looked young thanks to magic. Her true age was anyone's guess. Still, he admitted her power had terrified him, and he had no desire to duel another mage anytime soon. Fel eased his worries. Lucy was an exception. Most wizards couldn't cast with her speed or stamina. Against ordinary mages, Beryl would have no problem. Their conversation was cut short when Alucia arrived with news. Beryl had received a special request. At the Adventurers Guild, Guildmaster Nidus explained they wanted him to train rookie adventurers preparing for their first dungeon dive. Beryl was hesitant. He'd once dreamed of adventuring, only to be humbled and chased home by monsters on day one. But the guild was persistent. When Beryl's lack of adventuring experience raised doubts, Serena eagerly volunteered to test him in a duel. A crowd gathered as master and former student faced off for the first time in 20 years. Their clash was intense. Serena's speed and precision were remarkable, but Beryl calmly deflected every strike. Finally, spotting stiffness in her left hand, he disarmed and floored her in a single fluid sequence. The duel ended with roaring applause. Even the skeptical Megan bowed his head, convinced. Beryl was officially welcomed as the guild's special instructor. The next morning, he led 3 new adventurers, Horda, Nidri, and Sarakat, into a dungeon, with Serena at his side to ensure safety. The rookies handled goblins well, showing teamwork beyond their years. The run seemed too easy. Then, Sarakat's magic watch shattered. A shadow lunged. One of the students was injured before Beryl could intervene, and standing before them wasn't a goblin at all. It was a xenograil, a monster so dangerous it was marked as a designated calamity. Even veteran adventurers avoided it. But now, Beryl and Serena had no choice. They readied their blades. This fight was for survival. Beryl cursed himself for ever agreeing to this mission. A griffin was way out of his league. Thankfully, Serena was here, a black-rank adventurer. For her, this beast should have been nothing more than a warm-up. His plan was simple. While she handled the monster, he'd rush to help Pora, but Serena beat him to it. With a grin, she slapped his hand, promised to protect Pora, and told him to focus on the griffin. Before Beryl could protest, the beast lunged, forcing him straight into battle. He deflected claw strikes and aimed for its legs, but his blade barely scratched its armored hide. On the defensive, he prayed that Serena would get Pora to safety. A glance over his shoulder nearly cost him his life. He barely blocked a killing blow. Wounded and cornered, he needed a plan. A head-on assault was suicide. The griffin could breathe fire. Instead, he tried flanking. The monster whipped its tail, but Beryl reacted fast, severing it in one stroke. Enraged, the griffin hurled a fireball. Beryl dodged, but it then slammed into him head first, knocking the breath from his lungs. When he recovered, he found himself clinging to its back as it soared skyward. A fall meant certain death. He held on, teeth gritted, until the beast dove again. Leaping free, he landed just as the griffin unleashed its full fury, turning the battlefield into molten lava. The lava threatened the caves where the children hid. Hearing their terrified screams, Beryl abandoned caution. Boots hissing, he dashed across the burning ground and re-engaged. Fireballs rained. One blast hurled him into the air, yet he twisted mid-fall, driving his sword straight into the griffin's eye. The creature shrieked, thrashing, half-blind, but Beryl's weapon was stuck. Weaponless, he braced for the end. Then, Serena descended from above like a meteor. Her strike drove the griffin into the earth, and in one swift motion she slit its throat. Silence followed. The fight was over. Serena spotted Beryl's shattered blade and apologized, guilt heavy in her voice. But he waved it off. Their survival and the children's safety mattered more. Right on cue, the kids staggered out of the cave, alive. Back at the guild, the master was stunned. A named monster, defeated. Serena credited Beryl, insisting she couldn't have done it without him. Beryl tried to argue otherwise, but she refused the spotlight. Impressed, the guild master offered Beryl a place among the adventurers. He declined without hesitation. Later, Serena apologized again. Her bragging had dragged him into this mess. But Beryl reassured her. Every choice she made was flawless, and thanks to her, everyone survived. She lit up at his words, though she downplayed her role. He cut her off, telling her directly she'd grown into a remarkable adventurer. The next morning, Beryl sought out a blacksmith to replace his broken sword. Kuruni guided him, with Alucia tagging along under the excuse of advice, though her true motive was obvious. At the forge, the smith, Balder, froze upon seeing Beryl. He was once Beryl's student, years older but trained in swordsmanship to improve his craft. His flourishing shop proved the lessons had stuck. Kuruni handed Balder her short sword for sharpening, but he declared it ruined beyond repair. Beryl quickly realized why. Kuruni felt the weapon as light. She wasn't suited for it. He suggested a great sword instead. To everyone's surprise, Kuruni swung it with ease, her strength compensating for her size. She bought it on the spot, proud of the imposing blade across her back. Meanwhile, Beryl browsed for a replacement. Alucia pushed for a custom-forged weapon, but he shrugged it off. Then Serena arrived, dragging a sack. Inside, a griffin's leg. She wanted it forged into a longsword, not for herself, but for Beryl. He refused, insisting she'd earn the prize, but Serena wouldn't budge. Even Balder urged him to accept, more excited than anyone at the prospect of crafting a legendary blade. Reluctantly, Beryl agreed, though Balder's mischievous grin gave him little comfort. With errands finished, Kuruni tugged at his sleeve for training. Soon she stood with a wooden greatsword in hand as Beryl explained its strengths, devastating momentum swings, and the control gained by gripping the ricasso. Each strike stirred memories of her early dojo days when she first trained under him. That night, as Beryl walked home, a young girl brushed past and tried to lift his wallet. He caught her wrist, but she blasted him with fire magic and fled. Later, she slipped into a den of cutthroats, tossing stolen coin onto the table. The men jeered at her meager haul until their boss silenced them. The girl, Mui, kept her face blank, though she knew better than to disappoint him. Then panic struck. She realized she'd dropped something during her escape. The ring, and far away, Beryl now held it in his hand. The next morning, the training hall rang with steel. On one side, Kuruni swung her newly claimed greatsword, growing more comfortable with each strike. On the other, Henlitz faced off against Beryl in yet another spar. So far, Henlitz hadn't managed a clean hit. Gritting his teeth, he went for one last attempt, an overhead feint that shifted mid-swing toward Beryl's torso. It was clever, nearly flawless. But Beryl still read it instantly and countered with ease, ending the bout as always. Henlitz, catching his breath, bowed in thanks. Beryl praised him. His progress was undeniable. Just a little more speed, and the move might have landed. Henlitz's gaze drifted to Karuni, commending her boldness in abandoning her old weapon for something entirely new. Her potential was clear. Then his tone shifted. The Knights' Order needed every ounce of strength they could muster. The Dark Hand of Twilight, a notorious bandit group, had begun operating inside the capital itself, stirring chaos. Once their hideout was found, the Knights and Royal Guard planned a raid, and they'd need all available manpower. Henlitz admitted that Beryl alone could probably crush the thieves without breaking a sweat, but insisted the Knights would handle it themselves. Beryl was fine with that. Criminals weren't his problem. But as he idly turned the small ring he'd recovered from the pickpocket yesterday, Henlitz noticed. Karuni's eyes lit up. "Oh, so you're giving that to someone?" she teased. Henlitz agreed with a knowing grin. Before Beryl could protest, Karuni jabbed further, that the ring was too small, unless he planned to propose to Alucia. Beryl was baffled at how they'd arrived at that conclusion. Finally, he cut in. No, it wasn't a gift. He explained how he'd caught a young thief's wrist, only for her to escape by hurling fire magic at him. That gave Karuni pause. Why would someone with magic waste time pickpocketing? Any true mage could study at the Institute for free with all expenses covered. Henlitz speculated it might have been a magical accessory, then asked what Beryl intended to do with the ring. "Return it," Beryl said simply. "It's probably stolen." Henlitz advised leaving it at the Order's front desk, which Beryl promptly did. With that settled, he washed his hands of the matter. Or at least, he tried. The girl's expression as she fled still lingered in his mind. Later that day, Beryl wandered the city, scouting housing. The prices nearly floored him. He could technically afford it with his knight's pay, but spending that much made his chest ache. That's when he noticed a girl nearby, searching frantically. Up close, he recognized her instantly, the thief from yesterday. He asked if she was looking for a ring. The moment he mentioned it, she attacked. Beryl calmly diffused the scene, explaining he no longer had it. It was safe at the Order. She froze at that. She couldn't just stroll into headquarters. Beryl studied her carefully. If she truly stole it, why chase it this hard? "Unless it means something to you?" he asked. She snapped that she hadn't stolen it. That was good enough for him. He offered to vouch for her, so she could reclaim it. After a long hesitation, she agreed, though her scowl said she didn't like the deal. Inside the Order, Beryl retrieved the ring, but before handing it over, he wanted words. Right then, Alucia walked in, and immediately assumed Mui, the thief girl, was Beryl's secret love child. Beryl nearly choked, denying it furiously. Once explanations were exchanged, Alucia asked how he wanted to handle Mui. Normally, theft meant arrest, but Beryl had no taste for it. He asked only if she'd stop pickpocketing. Mui ignored the question, demanding the ring back. She clearly had no intention of quitting, but her refusal to lie about it struck Beryl as strangely honest. When Alucia learned Mui had used magic, she pressed for details. Mui admitted the flames were her own. That changed everything. Mages were valuable, and the kingdom would gladly support her. But Mui refused. She needed money, 5 million Dalk. Her boss had promised that for that sum, he'd resurrect her dead sister. Beryl's blood ran cold. Resurrection was impossible. He knew it. But Mui's desperate eyes told him she wouldn't believe that now. Alucia excused herself to verify something, leaving Beryl with Mui. He tried to ease her with food. She rejected cookies but devoured bread the moment he handed it over. Watching her eat, he felt relief. At least he could do this much for her. He gave her back the ring, ready to let her go. But before she could leave, Lucy stormed in, freshly informed of Mui's magic. The head of the Mage Corps herself invited Mui to the Institute. Mui declined flatly. It wouldn't earn her 5 million Dalk. When pressed, she confessed her reason. Lucy's face hardened. Resurrection was a fantasy. Mui exploded, insisting she'd seen it herself. But the truth was crueler. In her grief, she had mistaken a cheap telekinetic trick for a miracle. Lucy, anger simmering, demanded the name of the fraud. Mui hesitated, then revealed it. Twilight, the infamous leader of the Twilight Thieves. That settled it. Lucy ordered Beryl to accompany them. The den was shamelessly nestled right off the main street. Regretting not bringing a real blade, Beryl was reassured by Lucy. A wooden sword was more than enough for bandits. She blasted open the door, drawing the thieves like flies. One lunged for her. She flattened him with a flick of wind. "The rest are yours," she told Beryl, striding for the basement. Beryl cracked skulls with precise wooden strikes, each blow calculated not to kill, but to drop men hard. When the thieves spotted Mui, they roared, "Traitor!" and rushed her. Beryl silenced the first with a jab to the throat, cold and decisive. Below, Lucy confronted Twilight. He pelted her with enchanted ice, then bound her with telekinesis, the same trick he'd used to fool Mui. Laughing, he admitted everything, mocking her gullibility. Lucy's patience snapped. A hurricane-force gust slammed him into the wall, unconscious. Upstairs, Beryl finished the last bandit. One spat that Mui was ungrateful after all Twilight had done. That struck a nerve. Beryl crushed him with another throat strike. Lucy returned, dragging Twilight. Forced at Windblade's edge, he confessed his lies to Mui. Her heart shattered, the truth undeniable. The Knight's order soon arrived to haul the thieves away. Alucia thanked Beryl and Lucy, though the powerful enchanted trinkets Twilight wielded hinted at a greater hand behind the curtain. And in the shadows, that hand revealed itself. A hooded man watched as the cart rolled away, extended his palm, and ignited Twilight's body from within. The bandit screamed, then fell silent. Later, the man reported to his master, the Pope. Twilight was dead, silenced by the implanted curse. The corpses he'd collected would now serve the Pope's ambition to craft his own twisted miracle. The next morning, just after Beryl finished training with the Knights, Alucia hurried to him with grim news. During transport, Twilight had suddenly exploded. No warning, no cause, leaving nothing but a strange magical relic behind. The Magic Corps was investigating, but so far, they had nothing. As for the corpses Twilight had stolen, Alucia said his underlings claimed ignorance. Everything pointed to him following someone else's orders. The question was, whose? Later that day, Beryl picked up his new sword from the smithy. The craftsmanship left him speechless. He couldn't wait to test it. But when he returned to the hall, he found Lucy waiting outside, her expression serious. She invited him to her home for a private talk. Beryl was stunned by her mansion's grandeur. As they walked in, he asked after Mui. Lucy replied she was still coaxing her toward the Magic Academy. Inside, she poured herself tea, then introduced the guest waiting across from Beryl. Ibroy Hellman, a priest of the Sohim Church. Beryl greeted him politely, though he couldn't imagine why a priest was involved. Lucy explained, the magical tools Twilight had wielded were all manufactured in Sohim. They'd been supplied by a bishop, Rivios Sarium. In return, Rivios demanded corpses. Beryl's stomach sank. That explained Twilight's silence. He'd been silenced to protect Rivios. But why corpses? Ibroy answered, in Sohim's doctrine, magic was a divine gift. Of all miracles, resurrection was considered the highest and the least attainable. Though Ibroy doubted true resurrection was possible, Rivios seemed obsessed with researching it, using stolen bodies as material. So why hadn't Ibroy stopped him? Because Rivios was currently residing at Sohim's church in the northern district. The Knights planned to summon him for questioning tomorrow. But if Rivios bolted across the border, Liberus would lose all authority. Worse, detaining a foreign bishop risked igniting a diplomatic crisis. That's why they wanted Beryl. He had no official ties to Liberus, but more than enough strength to stop Rivios if he tried to flee. Lucy had already secured royal permission. Beryl could use whatever force necessary, but only if Rivios ran.
Beryl wasn't interested in church politics or resurrection research, but if there was even a chance he could recover Mui's sister's remains, at least to give her a proper farewell, it was worth it. He agreed. Lucy thanked him sincerely, promising generous compensation.
As he left, he nearly bumped into Mui, just returning from the market. She blinked at him in surprise. He said he'd only stopped by to discuss something with Lucy, but admitted he was glad to see she was doing well. Mui still couldn't fathom why he or anyone cared. She'd been nothing but a thief, yet they kept helping her. Beryl told her to stop overthinking it. Nobody here would exploit her like Twilight. She deserved a normal life. Mui asked softly if that was really true, if she could live happily now. Beryl reassured her she could. When he reached out to pat her head, she swatted his hand away, embarrassed. Smiling, he let it drop. That night, Beryl kept watch outside Sohim's church. Sure enough, Rivios and his men began packing to flee. Beryl circled to cut them off, but a cloaked figure blocked his path. The man recognized him instantly as the one who destroyed Twilight's gang, and had clearly expected him. He ordered 3 swordsmen forward, enhancing them with magic until their speed and strength spiked unnaturally. Beryl gripped his blade, realizing this fight would demand lethal intent. The first swordsman lunged, Beryl sidestepped and cut him down. The other 2 pressed in, buying time for Rivios and the cloaked man to retreat deeper into the church. Reinforcements soon joined until 5 enhanced foes encircled him. Even Beryl felt the pressure. Then a gust of wind tore one enemy's weapon from his grip. Fel rushed to his side with Karuni close behind. They hadn't been sent. They'd simply seen him outnumbered and dove in. Beryl doubted that explanation but welcomed the help. Together, the 3 cut down their opponents. When one fighter suddenly collapsed mid-duel, Fel explained the truth. Their overcharged magic was burning them out. More enemies swarmed. Fel and Karuni urged Beryl to chase Rivios while they held the line. He thanked them and charged inside, only to be stopped by Spur. Behind him, Rivios chanted, coffins trembling as the dead within stirred. Beryl's gut clenched. Corpses rose, not alive, but grotesque puppets, Mui's sister among them. It was not the miracle Mui had dreamed of. It was desecrated. One zombie grabbed Beryl's leg. He severed its head, the body erupting into blue flame. One by one, he cut them down, until only Mui's sister remained. He hesitated, wishing he could at least return her body intact. But there was no choice. He embraced her, whispered an apology, then struck true. She too dissolved into blue fire, leaving only a ring behind. Beryl barely had a moment before Spur attacked. The duel was brutal. Spur's skill and magically enhanced speed pushed Beryl to the edge. Wounded, bloodied, Beryl realized raw strength wouldn't win. He baited Spur into overextending, sacrificing his own arm to create an opening, then slashed deep across Spur's torso. It should have ended there, but Spur, refusing defeat, staggered forward like a man already dead. Only when his body finally gave out did he collapse. Outside, Fel and Karuni had apprehended Rivios. The bishop showed no regret. He only ranted that Spur had gladly sacrificed himself and that without a miracle of blood, the world was doomed. Beryl dismissed it as madness. The next morning, he reported to Lucy. He still regretted being unable to return Mui's sister. To cheer him, Lucy led him to a fine house in the city center, his reward. When he stepped inside, he found Mui sweeping. Confused, he asked why. Lucy explained, Mui had finally agreed to join the Magic Academy, but she needed a guardian. From now on, Beryl would be that guardian. Beryl froze, staring at her. His new home had just become more complicated than he ever expected. It had been 5 days since Beryl moved into his new home. Having a backyard and running water was a big step up for him, but he was still adjusting to the change. On top of that, he now had the responsibility of raising a teenage girl on his own. Later, Mui came down to eat. When Beryl asked if the food was good, she replied that it was fine, as long as it was edible. Beryl then offered to do her laundry, but she insisted on handling it herself, even though the last time she had only poured water on the clothes and called it done. An awkward silence followed until Mui asked if she could use the bathroom. Beryl reminded her that this was her home too, so she didn't need to ask permission for simple things. Mui said she understood, but Beryl suspected this might remain an issue. Though Beryl had worked with teenagers before, caring for one full-time was very different. He realized it would be hard if Mui kept acting distant, so he tried finding ways to connect. First, he bought her a skewer from the market. She said she liked it, though her face showed little emotion. Then he invited her to the theater, and to his relief, she agreed. They even discussed the play afterward, which felt like a small breakthrough. The next morning was Mui's first day at the Magic Institute. Beryl insisted on accompanying her to show support. At the entrance, a teacher named Kra greeted them and offered a tour. She explained that since Mui had been personally recommended by Lucy, the head of the institute, she didn't need to take the entrance test. Kra also explained the different types of magic: offensive, defensive, healing, enhancement, and lifestyle. Since Mui could only make flames, Kra suggested she specialize in offensive magic. Kra then showed them the dormitories. The place was large, with meals, baths, and private rooms for students. Mui seemed impressed, and even Beryl thought it looked great, but he worried she wouldn't adjust easily since she still acted cold toward him. On the way back, he wondered if she would be happier living among kids her age rather than with him. Later, they stopped at a sausage shop but found no seats. Luckily, they ran into Serena, who invited them to her table. While eating, Beryl explained that Mui was now living with him as his daughter, which surprised Serena. She warned Mui that life at the Magic Institute would be tough,
But Mui replied casually, even calling Beryl an old man, which irritated Serena. Still, Mui admitted she knew how strong Beryl was, and Beryl noticed she seemed a little more open during this outing. Back at the training yard, Beryl asked his friends for advice about whether Mui should live in the dorms or at home. Most said the dorms would be better, though Beryl still had doubts. Lucy also thought the dorms made sense, while Feichel, who would be teaching at the institute, agreed with the idea. Beryl left with mixed feelings, unsure what choice was best. That night, Mui asked Beryl to check a strange noise in her dresser. When he moved it, rats came running out. Mui wasn't bothered, but Beryl immediately tried to get rid of them. After a messy struggle, Mui even used a small flame to help trap the last one, allowing Beryl to catch it. This made him realize she was willing to work with him when needed. Later, Mui surprised Beryl by offering to help him cook dinner. While they worked together, she revealed that she didn't want to live in the dorms. She preferred staying with him and commuting to school instead. Mui explained that Beryl had done so much for her and she wanted to repay his kindness by helping out at home. Hearing this deeply moved Beryl. In the end, he agreed to let her stay with him, respecting her choice and feeling glad that she finally saw their home as her own. A few days later, after training, Alucia walked up to Beryl looking serious. She told him straight out that his outfit wasn't good enough anymore. A high-ranking group from the kingdom of Sphene would be arriving soon, and the knights were assigned to protect them during the talks. That also meant Beryl would likely be introduced to royalty, and Alucia insisted his current clothes wouldn't make the right impression. The others agreed, saying it would be a good chance for Beryl to build a reputation. Beryl felt it was way above his level, but Alucia reminded him he had already been officially appointed by the royal family. So whether he liked it or not, an introduction was bound to happen, and he needed proper clothes. Since he wasn't a knight, armor or uniforms weren't an option. He'd have to buy something suitable. Beryl agreed, but Alucia quickly told him she wouldn't let him shop alone. In truth, she had been wanting to go out with him, so she made up the excuse that he didn't know the shops well. Excited, she told him to meet her tomorrow afternoon. Later at home, Mui handed Beryl a package that had arrived. It was from Ibroy, who sent her a collection of fancy outfits as thanks for Beryl's help. Mui wasn't thrilled with the frilly dresses, but Beryl told her to at least keep a few. Over dinner, he explained that he'd be shopping with Alucia tomorrow for formal clothes. Mui immediately realized Alucia meant it as a date and politely refused when Beryl asked if she wanted to tag along. The next day, Beryl met Alucia and was surprised at how good she looked in casual clothes. She was happy he noticed, and they set out together. Meanwhile, Karuni and Henlitz secretly followed them, spying from a distance. Alucia took Beryl to her favorite clothing shop, but Beryl felt out of place in such a fancy setting. He let her pick clothes for him, only to realize her taste was worse than his. The shopkeeper flattered her choices, but Beryl knew it was just to make a sale. He spotted a simple, neat suit that fit him perfectly. Alucia thought it was too plain, but Beryl insisted. She respected his choice, and they left to check other shops, though he planned to return for the suit. Afterward, Alucia suggested they stop for lunch at a nice cafe. For her, shopping and dining together felt like a real date, and she was overjoyed. Karuni and Henlitz continued spying, amused at how happy she looked. By the end of the day, Beryl bought the first suit he had chosen, and Alucia said she didn't mind since she enjoyed spending the day with him. After he left, Henlitz came forward and asked her directly how she truly felt about Beryl. She admitted she just wanted to make him happy. The next day, Alucia challenged Beryl to a sparring match in the training hall. She claimed it was for practice before the delegation arrived, but Henlitz suspected there was more to it. Alucia even said that if she won, she would share one of her personal wishes with Beryl. When the match began, Alucia's incredible speed shocked everyone. Beryl barely kept up, deflecting her attacks and noticing how much she had improved. Realizing he couldn't beat her fairly, Beryl used a trick, grabbing her jacket and throwing her down. That gave him the win. He told her she fought too honorably, and in real combat, enemies wouldn't fight fair. After the spar, Karuni asked Alucia if she really planned to confess her feelings to Beryl if she had won. Alucia pretended she only wanted to ask him shopping again, but later she admitted privately that she truly liked Beryl. She wanted to make him happy, though she was willing to accept it if he found happiness with someone else. That evening, Beryl told Mui about the spar and how impressed he was by Alucia's progress. Mui teased him, saying it sounded like Alucia had feelings for him. But Beryl quickly cut her off, saying he didn't want to hear it. To him, Alucia was still his student, and their age gap was too big. The next morning, Mui came home late after her school orientation. By then, Beryl had already made dinner and was relaxing with a cold beer in his hand. Mui looked at him and asked if he really enjoyed beer that much.
Beryl grinned and said nothing was better than drinking from his favorite cup to unwind after a long day. Miui pointed out that his mug had a chip in it, but he brushed it off, saying it still worked fine. Beryl then noticed the bag Miui was carrying and asked about it. Miui opened it to show her new school uniform and some beginner magic textbooks from the institute. The books were only on loan, so she had to take good care of them. Seeing this made Beryl proud. Miui was just days away from officially starting at the Magic Institute. But then he remembered that all the students he'd seen before had school bags. He asked Miui if the school had given her one, but since she hadn't received any, she guessed it wasn't included. Miui said it didn't matter. She could just use her sack. Beryl disagreed, insisting she needed a proper bag for school. Miui herself didn't care much, but she appreciated how thoughtful he was. Meanwhile, Serena was called to the Guildmaster's office. He explained that a group of platinum-ranked adventurers had found a monster in a forest near the capital and trapped it there. The guild wasn't sure they were strong enough to deal with it, so he asked Serena to help. She admitted her strength alone wouldn't make much difference. Just then, someone came in saying that a visitor was asking for her. Elsewhere, Beryl stumbled across a bag shop. Wanting to buy one for Miui, he went inside but had no idea what style she might want. The shopkeeper helped him and guessed correctly that Beryl's child was entering the Magic Institute. He then showed Beryl the popular school bags. Beryl found one he liked, but the shopkeeper told him it cost 95,000 dal. The price shocked Beryl. It was expensive because it was made from imported sailor leather. The shopkeeper suggested cheaper options, but they looked terrible. In the end, Beryl left without buying anything. Even though he could afford the expensive bag with his current knight's salary, he didn't want to waste savings meant for Miui's future. Still, he wanted her to have something nice, so he began thinking of ways to earn extra money. On his way home, he ran into Serena, who seemed troubled. She explained that she had been asked to take on a difficult mission and was unsure how to handle it. She asked Beryl if he would come with her, not just for help, but also for peace of mind. Beryl doubted he could be useful, but when Serena mentioned there was pay involved, he agreed. The next day, Beryl and Serena traveled by carriage to the mission site. To make sure he understood correctly, Beryl asked if their goal was really just to capture a horse alive. Serena confirmed it and explained that the horse was to be presented as a gift to the visiting royal family of Senna. Since the request came from someone tied to the Liberion royals, she couldn't refuse. When they arrived, the adventurers told them the horse was still in the forest but hadn't triggered any traps. Serena and Beryl entered the forest to search. She explained that the horse had pure white fur and a silver mane, making it rare and valuable. Beryl was used to hunting monsters, but this was his first time trying to capture one alive. They soon found hoofprints near a water source. Beryl guessed the horse wouldn't return there and instead would go to another water spot. They decided to set up an ambush there. Serena explained her plan. She'd attack from behind with a padded arrow, making the horse run forward straight into Beryl's net. When the horse appeared, the plan worked at first. It ran toward Beryl, but just as he threw the net, the horse leapt clean over him. Chasing it down, Beryl tried again but failed, eventually jumping onto its back. Since he had no riding experience, he was quickly thrown off. The horse even seemed to mock him by standing still. Serena tried a lasso, but the horse dodged that too. They chased it until it leapt onto a rocky spire, which then collapsed. Beryl jumped after it to save it, and both landed in a ravine. Realizing they couldn't climb out, Beryl chopped down a tree to make a bridge across the river. The horse seemed to understand he was helping and even saved Beryl from falling into the water. By the time Serena caught up, the horse was calm and willingly followed them back. The guildmaster was overjoyed and paid Beryl a generous reward. With that money, Beryl finally bought Miui a proper school bag. But when he got home, Miui wasn't there. She had gone shopping. She soon returned and was surprised that Beryl had bought her a nice bag after all. Though she'd said she didn't need one, she was thrilled. Miui then revealed she had a gift for Beryl too, a ceramic mug to replace his chipped one. She explained that she had worked a dishwashing job Serena helped her find to earn the money. She wanted him to enjoy his beer even more, since ceramic cups improved the taste. Beryl was so touched that it brought him to tears. The next morning was Miui's first day at school. After she dressed in her new uniform, Beryl insisted on seeing her off. She boarded the carriage, and he wished her well. At work, his colleagues noticed how cheerful he seemed. Then Alucia approached, saying she wanted him to join a meeting with Sohin's Knight Commander and Vice Commander. Beryl agreed, thinking it was wise to stay informed. But when he entered the room, he was shocked. The Knight Commander of Sohin was none other than Rose, his former student. Long ago, Rose used to train at Beryl's dojo. He remembers how skilled she was, so talented that she only needed about a year and a half before moving on.
Even though her time there was short, she still holds a surprising amount of affection for Beryl. This makes Alucia a little jealous. Beryl is impressed that Rose is now the deputy knight captain of Sphene. Alucia, however, wonders what happened to Hein, the previous vice captain, since the change was sudden. Katoga doesn't want to discuss it, saying he doesn't have time. The real purpose of this meeting is to get Rose familiar with Baltrain before the foreign delegation arrives. Since she's never visited before, they'll spend a few days helping her learn the city and possible danger spots. Alucia suggests showing Rose around at night, but Katoga declines, disappointing Rose. Secretly, she had hoped Beryl might be the one to guide her. Later that evening, Beryl leaves training and finds Rose waiting at the front gate. She says she just wanted to talk and maybe stroll through the city. Beryl agrees, and they walk together, catching up. He asks when she joined the Holy Knights, and Rose explains she enlisted immediately after leaving his dojo because she was personally scouted by Guga. She admits she would have liked a break first. Beryl understands, since he too was thrown suddenly into his current role. Rose fondly remembers the days Beryl trained her while she prayed to Cian's deity, but he reassures her that she's clearly accomplished a lot. Becoming a vice captain is no small feat. Rose insists she only got the position because they urgently needed someone, not because she truly earned it. As they wander, Rose admires the city's beauty and even jokes about moving there. Beryl reminds her that, as deputy knight commander in another country, that would be difficult. Still, she playfully asks if he'd welcome her if she really did move. Beryl thinks she'd be a good influence on Mui, but realistically, it's not possible. As dusk falls, Rose returns to her quarters. That same evening, Beryl picks up a new suit he had ordered, costing him 65,000 dalk. He wears it home to get used to it. Mui is surprised to see him in formal clothes but quickly loses interest, making Beryl worry he looks odd. She simply announces dinner is ready. When he sits down, he's impressed by how much her cooking has improved. He asks about school, and Mui sighs, already tired of it. Concerned, Beryl asks why. She explains her classmates keep dragging her all over, to the library, the music hall, and the art studio. It's exhausting. Beryl realizes her classmates are probably just trying to help her learn the huge campus. Mui admits that's likely true, but it still wears her out, especially today when she struggled with large books filled with difficult words. Beryl then remembers she had trouble reading her admission papers. He realizes her reading skills may be weaker than he thought. Mui asks if he can help explain the words she doesn't understand. Delighted, Beryl agrees eagerly, happy for a chance to study with her. Soon, the day of the delegation's arrival comes. Alucia gathers the knights and explains the plan. Prince Glenn of Sphene will stay for 3 days, and Alucia, Henblets, and Beryl will guard Princess Salacia. This will be Beryl's first direct meeting with royalty, making him nervous. Salacia warmly greets him, saying Aaliyah has told her good things. Then Prince Glenn arrives with Rose and Gatoga. Salacia's face lights up when she sees him, and their affectionate behavior makes Beryl suspect a romance. Before departure, Alucia instructs Beryl to ride alone in the second carriage as a decoy. He finds the idea boring. Rose teasingly offers to ride with him, but he politely refuses, saying they must stay professional. The carriages roll out, knights keeping the route clear, but Glenn and Salacia suddenly ask to stop. They spot jewelry in a shop window and want to look. Alucia disapproves but can't deny them. They go inside, while a large crowd gathers outside. Beryl is surprised by the crowd's size, but Henblets explains it's normal when royalty appears. As the royals return to their carriage, Gatoga warns Glenn not to make such random stops. Glenn apologizes. Just then, Beryl notices a shadowy figure moving through the crowd, but it vanishes before he can be sure. He wonders if it was only his imagination. At the next stop for lunch, Beryl tells Alucia about the suspicious figure and the feeling of being watched. Though surprised, she and Henblets take his warning seriously and tighten security. Their next destination is the theater, where another large crowd has gathered. Suddenly, 3 masked attackers rush from the crowd toward the royals. The knights immediately intercept them, but when Beryl blocks one attacker, the man ignores him and runs past. Sensing no killing intent, Beryl realizes they are decoys. His suspicion proves right when more assassins leap from rooftops and throw smoke bombs. Chaos fills the area. Alucia orders some knights to escort the royals inside while the rest fight. Despite the smoke, Beryl blocks a poisoned blade, realizing one hit could be fatal. Alucia orders the knights to capture at least one alive, but the assassins fight dirty. One even throws sand into Henblets' eyes. Beryl adapts to his opponent's mix of punches and swordplay. He counters with an elbow strike, disarms him, and cripples his legs, winning decisively. Meanwhile, Henblets, blinded, relies on his sharp hearing to parry every strike until he finishes his opponent with his special technique.
Alucia faces an assassin who grabs her cape to throw her off balance, but thanks to Beryl's earlier advice, she's ready. She counters, injures his leg, and defeats him with a swift triple slash. Gatoga easily overpowers his opponent, but when he unmasks him, he freezes in shock, recognizing the face. His hesitation allows the assassin to escape into the crowd. On Rose's side, the battle is brutal. She fights with overwhelming aggression, stabbing her opponent through the face. Beryl is shocked, remembering how defensive her style used to be. Once the fight ends, the knights gather any surviving assassins for questioning, but before they can interrogate them, the captives suddenly bite down on hidden poison. Blood fills their mouths and they die instantly. Everyone is left stunned, wondering who could have planned such a deadly, organized attack. Gatoga quietly whispers the name Hines, but when Beryl walks over to ask what's wrong, Gatoga brushes it off and only says the assassin got away. Right after that, the royal outing is cut short. Everyone scrambles to get Prince Glenn and Princess Salacia back to the castle safely. Alucia puts Henblets in charge for now, but she tells Beryl to stick close to help protect them. As the carriages roll out, Beryl asks Alucia what the plan is, but even she admits she doesn't know. Every assassin they caught ended up killing themselves before questioning, and the others escaped. After today's chaos, Beryl figures tomorrow's tour is probably cancelled. For now, though, Glenn and Salacia make it back to the castle safe. Security around the palace will have to be tightened in case the killers try again. Alucia and Gatoga need to report everything to their higher-ups, so Alucia dismisses Beryl for the night. Gatoga does the same for Rose. Beryl assumes Rose will drag him out again, but she just walks away without a word. With nothing else to do, Beryl heads home. When he gets there, he's surprised to find Lucy already inside talking with Mui. Curious, he asks why she came. Lucy explains she wanted to talk to him directly about the assassination attempt. Beryl realizes something strange. There were no mages in the security detail. Lucy nods and says that's because the Magic Corps were ordered to work in the shadows this time. Mui immediately excuses herself, saying she wants no part in government secrets. Lucy respects that and continues. She explains the real reason no magic users were present. In Cian's religion, magic is treated as a sacred gift only the devout should use. If Baltrain's knights openly used magic during the tour, it could have sparked a diplomatic incident. Lucy also believes the attack wasn't random, it was political. She's almost certain the assassins were connected to Cian. Meanwhile, Rose meets Alucia outside the training grounds. Alucia is surprised to see her since she was dismissed earlier, but Rose says she came to talk with Gatoga. He's still tied up in meetings, so Rose instead asks Alucia about tomorrow's tour route. It passes through the farming district. Rose invites her to a cafe to explain the layout. Back at Beryl's, he asks Lucy why she's so sure the attackers were from Cian. Lucy says her intel came from Ibroy, and her sources are reliable. She explains Cian is in the middle of a power struggle between the Pope's faction and the Royalists. Beryl, not knowing much about Cian's politics, asks who actually holds more power, the king or the Pope. Lucy says technically the king rules, but since he follows the church's doctrine, he can't ignore the Pope's influence. Still, the king has the final say. She believes the assassins were Pope loyalists, trying to shift power in their favor. Beryl wonders why they'd want Glenn dead. Wouldn't his brother just take over? Lucy explains that Glenn's brother Fal is completely devoted to the Pope. If Fal became crown prince, the Pope would essentially gain full control of the kingdom. Elsewhere, Rose and Alucia chat about Beryl. Rose recalls the first time she saw him fight and how his skill amazed her. Alucia shares how, as a child, she didn't realize how valuable his training was until she finally succeeded with one of his techniques. Both clearly respect him deeply. As they talk, Rose notices a lost boy named Ritter. She quickly calms him down and gets him to describe his mother. Alucia is impressed by how naturally Rose handles the situation. Eventually, they find Ritter's mother, and Rose explains her love for children comes from helping at an orphanage her parents supported. Meanwhile, Beryl pieces things together at home. Every captured assassin killed themselves, just like the bishop's knight he fought before. That kind of fanaticism means they'll almost certainly attack again tomorrow. Lucy leaves, and Mui returns just in time for dinner. The next day, Alucia tells the knights the tour will continue as planned. Beryl is shocked, but the decision came directly from Glenn, who refuses to back down since canceling would weaken his position politically. Before the convoy leaves, Gatoga pulls Beryl aside. He admits that one of yesterday's attackers was Hines, the former vice captain who disappeared before Rose took over. Gatoga says if Hines shows up again, he wants to face him. Beryl agrees. The group moves into the farming district. Glenn and Salacia admire the vast golden wheat fields, refusing to cancel their inspection despite the danger. But then, an arrow suddenly zips past Glenn's head. The ambush has begun. Archers fire from the fields, and melee fighters rush in. Beryl and the knights fight to protect the royals, but the battle is brutal. The enemy archers are so reckless they keep hitting their own allies with friendly fire, making the fight even more chaotic. Beryl cuts his way through wave after wave, but the knights are slowly being overwhelmed. He yells for Lucia to get Glenn and Salacia back to the carriages while he holds off the attackers. Later, deep in the woods, Beryl encounters Rose again. She praises his strength. He thanks her, but both know it's time to finally settle things. They draw their swords and prepare for a serious fight. Beryl asks Rose if she had to kill her own teammates to get this far. Rose says no. She just knocked them out so they wouldn't get in her way. But she quickly adds that trick won't work on him. Then she flips the question, asking how long he suspected her. Beryl admits he started doubting her back at the theater when she killed that assassin without hesitation. With her skill, she could have captured him alive, but instead she went straight for the kill, like she was trying to silence him. On top of that, Beryl noticed too many assassins getting past the area Rose was supposed to guard. That's when he realized she was letting them through on purpose. Beryl asks if causing this much chaos is really worth it just so Glenn can't take the throne. Rose replies that she has plenty of reasons, then asks what Beryl would do if he had to watch his country fall apart, kids starving and freezing while politicians played their power games. Beryl admits he doesn't know much about politics, but as her teacher, he can't let her walk this path. Rose argues that what she's doing is to help people, so why is it wrong? But Beryl tells her the children she's trying to save wouldn't want her drowning herself in blood for their sake. Seeing that he'll never agree with her, Rose raises her sword. Beryl refuses to give up on her, saying he'll stop her here and then make her explain everything afterward. Meanwhile, at the carriage, the knights are still struggling to protect Glenn and Salacia. One assassin fighting Hemblet suddenly powers up with magic, making things worse. Lucia orders everyone to stay focused. Karuni wants to run to help Beryl, but they're barely holding the line, so she has to trust he can handle himself. Deep in the woods, Beryl and Rose clash swords. Beryl only defends, not attacking because he doesn't want to hurt her. Rose mocks him, asking how he'll stop her if he won't fight back. Beryl admits it won't be easy. Then he notices Rose adjusting her stance in the mud. When she goes for a heavy swing, he ducks under perfectly, leaving her wide open. He could have ended it right there, and Rose knows it. She realizes she can't beat him in a fair fight, but still refuses to stop, because if she fails, the orphans will die. Beryl is shocked. Rose explains the Pope has taken the children hostage, forcing her to go along with the assassination. She acts like it doesn't matter, she still has to kill Glenn, but when Beryl hears this, his whole energy changes. For the first time, Rose sees him furious, not at her, but at the Pope. Rose says he should hate her too, but Beryl makes his decision. He's taking her down here and now. Rose charges again. Even with her shield, Beryl blocks and sidesteps her attacks. She manages to cut his cheek, but the shield also slows her down and limits her reach. Beryl starts spotting gaps in her defense. When Rose commits to another strike, he knocks her blade aside and slashes her across the chest. Blood sprays, and Rose knows it's over. She never thought she'd die by Beryl's hand. Beryl admits he was just improvising. If she lasted longer, the trick wouldn't have worked again. Rose tells him to finish her off, but he refuses. He wants her to live, face her mistakes, and take responsibility. He also blames himself, saying if she strayed this far, then he failed her as a teacher. Just then, Gatoga arrives. He freezes when he sees Rose's injury, then rushes to heal her. He manages to stop the bleeding, but she's still badly hurt. When he asks what happened, Beryl admits he was the one who struck her down, because Rose was part of the assassination plot. Gatoga is stunned, but Rose confirms it's true. Beryl explains about the orphans being held hostage, and Gatoga is horrified but not surprised, considering how fanatical the Pope's followers are. Gatoga says the priority now is rescuing the children, but first, he tells Beryl he's going to report that Hines was behind everything, and that Rose got injured fighting him. Rose weakly jokes he'll get in trouble for covering for her, but Gatoga says if the truth gets out, she'll be executed, and he won't let that happen. Beryl asks why, and Gatoga reveals the truth. Rose is his stepsister. They grew up together, and he won't let her die like this. Beryl promises not to expose her either. Curious, he asks where Gatoga's loyalty really lies, with the Pope or the Prince. Gatoga says as a knight commander he's supposed to stay neutral, but honestly, he's on Glenn's side. Rose interrupts, saying she doesn't trust the royals because the Pope told her they framed Bishop Revios with false charges. That catches Beryl's attention. He says that's a lie. Revios was guilty, and he knows because he's the one who stopped him. Revios had criminals steal corpses and tried to use forbidden sorcery to bring them back. Hearing this, Rose realizes the Pope has been lying to her all along. She even doubts whether he ever meant to save the orphans. Beryl tells her to rethink her loyalty. Rose admits everything she did might have been pointless, but now she wants to live and set things right. Gatoga carries her off while Beryl warns him to keep all of this secret. Back at the carriage, Alucia, Karuni, and Hemblitz manage to finish off the remaining assassins. Just as Alucia prepares to check on Beryl, he returns. He says he followed Rose into the woods, but she was badly injured, and Gatoga carried her off for treatment. Alucia accepts it and orders fresh horses so they can return home. At the training hall, Alucia explains the higher-ups' decision. The farming district tour is over, and since their unit took minimal losses, the royal family's image won't suffer. But they'll have to pay compensation for the farmland destroyed. Then a knight hands her a letter from the royals, an invitation to a formal banquet praising her performance. She notices Beryl's name on the invitation too, meaning he has to attend as well, though he clearly doesn't want to. At the banquet, Beryl is uncomfortably surrounded by nobles, while Alucia stays perfectly composed. King Gladio and Princess Salacia arrive, and the king thanks Alucia for protecting his daughter. He also thanks Beryl, saying he heard how much he did in the battle. Salacia chimes in too, praising his strength. The king then shares news. Salacia is set to marry Prince Glenn soon, and she'll go to Sphene for the ceremony. But with Sphene's unstable politics, he's worried. That's why he's been thinking of forming a royal guard for Salacia, with Beryl leading it. Beryl wants no part of it, but he can't refuse outright. Luckily, Alucia speaks up, insisting they can't afford to lose Beryl from their order. The king accepts this, but tells Beryl he expects him to live up to the title of Swordmaster. Beryl is caught off guard, feeling unworthy of such a title since he's never even beaten his father in a duel. After the banquet, Beryl goes home and shows Mui the gift he received, a fine glass dish. He doesn't want to use it or just let it sit, so he sends it to his father instead. In his letter, he explains about the banquet and how the king called him a swordmaster, though he doesn't feel like he deserves it. His father shakes his head, wishing his son would recognize his own talent. But he also knows Beryl's humility comes from always striving to improve, and he's excited to see how far his son's swordsmanship will go. Bringing the anime recap to an end.